Hey friends, so I am coming to you from Berlin and I am sick at the moment, having all the symptoms of the coronavirus. And so I went to get tested today at one of the clinics here in Berlin, and it was actually really crazy. I felt like I was in a movie. I waited outside the door, there was a long line for over an hour, and then once I was inside, I waited for 3 more hours, and people going in, they had this like chute where you receive like a mask and a waiting number, and so there were just a bunch of people with masks waiting inside to talk to the doctor and to get tested. And I literally felt like I was in a movie. And it was really interesting because I also felt like I was being reminded of some really beautiful things at the same time. And I wanted to share them with you, and in hopes too that I know that there are a lot of people all around the world who are kind of feeling really afraid, and there's a lot of panic and a lot of anxiety, and a lot of people, including myself, who have never necessarily experienced this kind of a worldwide thing before. And so I just wanted to offer some things that I felt like were important for me to remember today. And I actually was going to do a podcast today about alignment anyway for Artists Rising. So this is actually sort of in a similar direction, a similar vein. And I just wanted to share some ways to connect to love in the midst of fear and panic. And there was an older man when we were waiting in line outside who was just like kind of weeping, and I was just so filled with compassion for him, and I think just for all the people who are feeling really afraid. And I've felt as well inside of myself this sort of tug of war. Like, it's really easy to just kind of go to fear when we are when everyone is sort of projecting a lot of fear, especially in the media. And then when you talk to other people, when you go to the grocery store, when you see that certain things are completely sold out, and, like toilet paper and all of that. And, just not being sure of what tomorrow will be like. And as I was sitting there in the waiting room, I just really felt like I was reminded, wow, our circumstances do not actually decide how much we are going to thrive or feel love. And I've been thinking about that topic lately anyways, because it was something that I posted about recently just in my new single, and I was talking about my husband and my relationship, and how one of the most important things that we have learned is that no one else is responsible for our happiness. And that has just totally revolutionized our relationship, but also just that whole idea that actually our happiness and joy does not come from our circumstances either. It's not dependent on people, and it's not dependent on circumstances. And so that was just really refreshing. And I just wanted to offer a few different things that I feel I've just been privileged and so blessed to learn in the last few years, that have really helped me connect to love more and more and more in the last years, but also even now. I think today I was just thinking about all of those things, and I wanted to share them with you. So number one is turn your affection to love and practice the presence. And if any of you know Brother Lawrence, that book, he's a monk that lived in the 1600s, and he wrote a beautiful book called The Practice of the Presence. And he just talks about how he would, moment to moment, consistently throughout every day turn the affection of his heart to God, to love, and he would start to feel amazing. And he just talked about how he would constantly be conversing with God. If you don't believe in God, if you want to think about it as just turning to love, whatever helps you to connect, think about that. But practicing the presence and focusing on actually turning the affection of your heart towards love, the people that you love, the beautiful things of the world, that is a really, really powerful first step. Also, to focus on things that we're thankful for, and also remember that I've heard multiple people talk about this concept, and I don't know scientifically if it's true, but 17 seconds of focus on a specific thought, whether it be like offense at someone else and negative, or whether it be life-giving and positive, 17 seconds of focusing on that thought will bring another like-minded thought, and you can build momentum on those thoughts. So just being aware of that and being sensitive and observing the things that we're thinking about, observing our thoughts, and being really proactive and intentional to actually turn towards love, turn towards life, right? It's easy to read the news and just really want to freak out. So the more that we can sort of turn towards almost massaging our thoughts into good, I think it's also really a normal thing to sort of feel like a really fast, strong, resistant, triggered thought, and have a really strong emotion from a one headline. And I'm actually going to talk more about that towards the end, because sometimes it's really hard to just turn and focus your thoughts to something good or be thankful when you're feeling so much contrast and you're feeling really strong emotion. And so sometimes the best thing to do is to really acknowledge your emotion, and then accept that emotion and actually bring compassion and forgiveness into that place. And I think just with practice, you come to realize like which one is more effective in the moment. But sometimes just turning your attention away from the negative stuff and the things that you know are just going to bring a momentum of fear is a lot more powerful. So I will talk more about some tools for emotional stuff and how to deal with those really strong triggers, though, towards the end. But you want to sort of get into like the softer, tender emotions and sort of massage, like help give your thoughts a little massage and go into some lighter thoughts that actually really make you feel good, that actually are going to help you go towards more light and life and love, and gratitude, because it can always be worse. I mean, Corona is crazy, and today what I experienced is crazy, but it could be so much worse. Like, I'm just so thankful that, it's not like every single person who receives this virus is, dying. I mean, it could be so much worse. And so it could always be worse. So that's something that we can just turn our attention to. Another thing that really, really helps me is meditation. And meditation can look like a lot of different things: to be able to focus your breath, to be able to focus on truth. It really helps me to meditate and memorize actually different scripture verses. Some people find it really helpful as well to meditate on mantras. And, I think when I really start to allow myself to memorize something and really focus on memorizing something, there's also such a life-giving, positive change and shift that I feel in myself. And I think part of that comes from, especially if you're meditating on truth, you're going to feel that vibration of life. but also it helps release the resistance that you have towards negative thoughts and thoughts of fear. Because it is virtually impossible to actually think and meditate about fear and love at the same time. If anyone has ever heard of Caroline Leaf, she's a scientist and neurologist, and she actually paints a picture. She sort of shows how our brain, when we think, it's like we think almost in waves, and it starts from the front and goes like in a circular motion. And when we are thinking thoughts of love, when we're connected to oxytocin, for example, which is a chemical that comes from trust, then the brain moves in those circular motions of waves. But when we have fear, it actually shows up like in a brain scan as like this black tree that stops that motion. So it's really fascinating, but fear and love literally cannot exist at the same time. So anyway, just knowing that, and knowing that we can actually choose in the moment how we want to react and what we want things to mean. We get to choose what certain circumstances mean to us. And that's also a really powerful thing to remember. Another really great thing to remember to do is sing. Singing really is, it's a beautiful thing for so many reasons, but it's going to help you calm down. It's going to help you connect. It's going to help your brain also, both sides of your brain start to engage, and it also produces this chemical oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin. So that's a really great thing to do if you can sing with other people. It's also been scientifically proven that singing with groups of people is even more beneficial. So sing, 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 and hum if you're on your way somewhere out in the city, out and about, and it's not really necessarily like the right place or time for you to be able to full on sing, then just do some humming. It's also been known to calm people down a little bit, and so it can help you kind of maintain and establish sort of a peace. And I think it's important to just kind of be thinking about the fact that just that 17-second rule, like, you know, what you start to think on it builds a momentum and brings like-minded thoughts. So we want to just kind of constantly be aware and then sort of build up a momentum in the direction of life. Also, just to continue to focus on things and do things that actually make your heart sing. So things that you enjoy, that make you happy, that make your heart happy, and that bring life, that are just fun. Things that you can maybe, excuse me, that you can lose yourself in. Things that you can sort of lose track of the time. So do something creative. Do something like writing or painting or singing or making something, making a film or making even Instagram posts, whatever is creative for you, whatever you feel like gets those creative juices flowing. Dance. Excuse me. Yes, dance. Turn on your favorite song and just go for it in the living room, and just let your body and the physicality of moving start to shift things for you. Gosh, excuse me. Also, another thing is find some other people that you can do something kind for. Find someone else that maybe needs some encouragement, or oh my gosh, coughing here. Yeah, another thing that is really always makes me feel super, super great is to just do little appreciation letters where you actually write to people or send a voice message and just, excuse me, shower the people that you appreciate with love and tell them why you appreciate them. it will make them feel really great, and it will make you feel really great. And it really gets you to focus on the good, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Um, if you believe in God, if you are in the practice of listening to God's voice, then that is also a really powerful thing. Listening to what God is saying about your situation and finding a perspective outside of your current perspective is so, so helpful. And also, even to sort of somehow pretend almost that you are your own best friend or your own mother or father, and that you're sort of standing outside of yourself and coaching yourself or speaking really tenderly to yourself as if you were your best friend or a sweet little daughter or child, and just encouraging yourself and coaching yourself and speaking kind, loving words to yourself. That's also really, really powerful. And just to try doing that for a few minutes at a time, but even then to think about trying to do that throughout the day, it's insane how powerful that is. And also just, continuing to ask God, how is God seeing this? How, Holy Spirit, what do you see in this situation? What is your perspective? What is the truth of the situation? Because I really believe there is a physical reality and there's a spiritual reality. And so we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. I don't know who said that. It's a famous quote, but there's more to us than just what we see and just this physical thing. So just to sort of be aware of that and a different perspective. Um, yeah, think about the things, meditate on the things that you know to be true. Um, there's a beautiful verse that says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, pure, lovely, admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And that is as well really an amazing, I think, truth that all of us can really grasp onto and start to learn and teach ourselves how to do. That is not something that I knew how to do for a very long time. I think to a certain extent I was able to do that, but then I really had to also, I mean, I still will be learning it my whole life, but I know that I have learned so much in the last few years, the last 10 years, I would say, about training my thoughts and actually observing my thoughts and then starting to transfer those thoughts into thoughts that are actually full of love, thoughts that are actually bringing life and serving me and the people around me, and not actually attacking me and the people around me. And I think it's so easy to go into negativity, and I think that's also what our primal brains are used to doing for survival. But that's something that we don't need to do to survive anymore. And so that's really great news. All right. So the other thing that I want to talk about is compassion as the opposite of judgment. And well, I'll talk about this more when I talk about the exercise for the strong emotions, but anytime we are actually feeling a negative emotion, that's usually because we're judging something. We're either judging ourselves. If we're in fear, we're judging the circumstance and our situation. There's judgment and offense that are so linked to all of our negative emotions. And the opposite of that is compassion and trust and forgiveness. And so the more that we can bring in compassion to ourselves and to the people around us, to the even to the media headlines, being compassionate and knowing, you know what? we're human. We're all trying to figure this experience on earth out, trying to figure out how to do it right and how to do it well and make the best of it. And so just to have compassion. And even as I was in the waiting room today, I really was thinking so much about that, because there were a lot of people who were reacting and responding in a lot of different ways. And some people were yelling at each other, some people were highly irritated, some people were, oh gosh, it just ran the gamut. But there's such a strength in actually coming together and connecting with compassion, both for yourself and for all the people in the world, because we are all connected and we are all human, and trying to just do the best that we can. And the more that we can connect to compassion and forgiveness and trusting that actually there is the possibility for good in every situation, even extreme danger, even extreme trauma and extreme atrocities. And anyway, I could talk a lot more about that. I'll talk a little bit more about compassion and how to actually practically bring that in a little while. But I just want to say a couple more things. Another really great idea is to daydream. And if you have some things that you are dreaming about, some things that your heart desires that feel good to think about, to allow yourself to kind of daydream about them and allow your mind to wander in that direction and start to feel the pleasure of what it would feel like to actually live out those dreams. There's such power in that, and it's beautiful, and it makes us feel good, and it connects us as well to our hearts and to love. And so definitely do that. And yeah, I think just to be aware of the feelings that you're feeling, because we can truly, truly be feeling love and thriving, feeling hope in the midst of the greatest difficulties in life, and even thankfulness and joy. And I know that might sound a little bit contradictory to some people, but I have experienced it, and I really believe that it's true. And I think it's true for everyone. I think it's possible for everyone. So yeah, I just want to offer that to you. And and now I just want to talk a little bit about the emotional tool that I learned from my amazing counselor, Laura Duncan, and she calls it the remote control exercise. And basically, this is something that anytime I feel a really strong negative trigger emotion, it's like my go-to. Because I think what happens when we feel really strong negative emotions is we feel this resistance, we feel almost afraid of feeling the thing, and the fear, or the fear of feeling fear, the fear of feeling anxiety, the fear of feeling sadness or loneliness, that is sometimes even more overwhelming than the actual fear itself. And also, the more that we can just come to a place of acceptance and compassion and realize, actually, I don't have to be afraid of feeling any emotion. The more we can accept all of our emotions, also the more we're going to just like walk out into freedom and thriving and life, because that is just a really, really beautiful place to be. When you're not afraid to feel anything, then anything can come up and you don't have to be scared. It's just like you accept it. But I think it has a lot to do too with that whole analogy of giving birth. Like, if you, not that I've given birth, but I've heard from people that have, that if you are afraid of the pain in childbirth and you tighten up, it's more painful, first of all. And second of all, that baby just doesn't get born. And so if you can actually feel the pain, relax into it, breathe into the pain, not only will it be less painful, but the baby gets born. So this exercise, the remote control exercise, a long introduction here, but basically this is a way for us to actually feel our pain in a really safe and welcoming way, that we can actually accept the pain and actually then move past it. Because when we're resisting the pain, constantly resisting the pain and afraid of feeling the anger, the fear, the sadness or loneliness, then that's even more painful and is going to cause more suffering, actually. So what the remote control exercise is basically whatever you feel that negative emotion sort of flare up, you kind of push pause, let all the circumstances around you just pause for a minute, and then you ask yourself, and I like to put my hand on my heart because I feel more connected that way. I just say, JennyRebecca, what are you feeling right now? And then I'll just start to list all the things. I'll say, well, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel lonely, I feel hopeless. And you start to kind of dig. And you ask yourself, what else? What else do you feel? Yeah, I feel really frustrated. I feel, I don't know, whatever it is. Usually the thing for me at the bottom of all of the feelings and getting behind all of those emotions and getting to like the soft and tender emotions is that I actually feel like I'm not good enough. That's usually for me like the trigger that goes to all of the variety of emotions. So anyway, once you get to that point, then you start to bring compassion. And you say to yourself, JennyRebecca, I'm so sorry. I mean, not JennyRebecca. You use your own name. So you speak to yourself. You say by name, you say, I'm so sorry that you feel sad. I'm so sorry that you're feeling angry. I'm so sorry that you're feeling frustrated and hopeless and not good enough. I'm so sorry. You go through all the different things that you might be feeling and you just say, I'm so sorry. And then the next step is to say all of those emotions again, and you want to each one, you want to say, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel lonely. It's okay to feel hopeless. It's okay to feel like you're overwhelmed. It's okay to feel all the things. And you just allow yourself to feel those things. And I promise it is not as scary as it actually feels when we're resisting feeling. It actually feels good. Usually I start to cry as I'm doing this. Usually things start to kind of loosen up. Like I'll feel an emotion. If I feel a negative trigger, I usually feel it like tight in my throat or in my chest or in my rib cage or my stomach. And then as I start to bring compassion and bring comfort and bring compassion, it's like it starts to loosen up. If you know EFT tapping, where you're, tapping on different Chinese acupuncture pressure points here, like base of the eyebrow, top of the head, this bone right by our little squinty muscles above and below the lips, our collarbone, right on the palm of your hand. All of those places as well really help shift the nerves in your body and also help you sort of shift and get rid of the that emotion, that negative emotion. And then the last thing that I always end with is after I've really allowed myself to say, it's okay to feel this. I'm not saying it's okay, it's going to be okay. I don't go there yet. I'm only focusing on it's okay to feel all the emotions. Then I say to myself, JennyRebecca, I see you. I see you. I see how hard you're working. I see how hard you're trying. And I see that your heart has the best intentions. This is super powerful. And I just sort of allow myself to stay in that place of compassion until I really feel a release. And the more that you practice it, the more you will know when that release happens. And when the release happens, then you can start to turn to encouragement, and you can start to talk to yourself as well, like your own parent or your own best friend. And you can start to tell yourself beautiful things like, I love you. You are precious. You are beautiful beyond compare. You are valuable to the world, to the people in the world. You're valuable in this time in history, in all of time and space. You are marvelous. Whatever you feel like you rings true to you, and it is such a wonderful experience and such a beautiful thing. And so anyway, I hope that if you're listening to this now, that you get some good tools to help you move past fear or anxiety or any kind of panic that might come up because of what's going on in the world at the moment. And if you end up listening to this later, hopefully in the next month or two, everything is just blown over and it's just fantastic. But maybe you listen to this video. I don't know yet if I'm going to post it on Artists Rising on the podcast, but if you happen to pick it up later and you're like, you know, in the midst of some panic or fear or trauma as you're going about your pursuing your creative dreams, then this is, I think, holds just true for any scenario. It is possible to have an experience similar to what I experienced today in the waiting room, where I felt like my whole body was on fire with good, life-giving love. I felt so connected to love and so connected to God and so connected to hope in the midst of that waiting room. I was like almost shaking, vibrating from so much love. So I hope that anyone who hears this will also experience similar things. And I hope for all of us collectively that maybe this coronavirus is a wake-up call in that direction for the whole world, and that we can all collectively start to move more in the direction of love, connection, compassion, to each other, to God, to our own hearts, all of that. So, sending you so much love from Berlin tonight, and yeah, talk to you soon.